Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please take your seats, the meeting is going to begin momentarily. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Hello, good evening. This announcement is to inform you that we do have Spanish interpretation services available. If there's anyone needing Spanish interpretation services available, interpreters are available on this table to my left. Hola, buenas noches. Este comunicado es para informarles que tenemos servicios de interpretación en español disponibles. Para las personas que necesiten de este servicio de interpretación, siéntanse libres de venir a la mesa de intérpretes que está a mi izquierda. Gracias.
Okay, we're going to get started. If you'd find your seats, please. We're going to get started. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. We'll just get started right away. I'm Shirley Gonzalez, co-chair of the Housing Bond Committee. And we have Katie Vela with us, also co-chair of the Bond Committee. And so we will just get started right away with our meeting this evening. And let me turn it over to Katie to do some opening comments and remarks and overview of the meeting for today.
Sure. So welcome, everyone. We'll start with citizens to be heard. We have 34 people signed up, and we want to make sure there's plenty of time for everyone to speak and also to have some committee discussion. So we'll be doing 2 minutes for individuals and 3 minutes for groups. After that, we will hear from the staff on a presentation of the survey results and then go into a discussion. Okay, so we can start getting our queue for public comment. First up, we'll have Natalie Griffith, followed by Michael Taylor.
So if you hear your name, if you'd come queue up here, that'd be great so that we can have a faster transition between. So Natalie and Michael should be up here.
And up here, we have a light that's green, and it'll turn yellow, I believe, when you have 30 seconds, just so you can keep an eye on that. But thank you. I just wanted you to know logistically. Okay.
Okay, wow, long walk. So I'm Natalie Griffith. I'm the president of Habitat for Humanity, and I'm here to tell you why truly affordable home ownership is important. It is the best catalyst to break the cycle of poverty. It provides a family with stability and a permanent housing solution. Most moderate and low-income families are living in overcrowded situations because families with children have the hardest time finding living situations that are truly size-suitable and affordable long-term. Overcrowded living situations have extremely negative effects on children. Poor housing quality is associated with higher symptoms of depression, anxiety, and aggression from elementary school through young adulthood. Living in overcrowded residences is strongly and independently associated with a child's socioeconomic status. Children who live in a crowded household for an extended period are less likely to graduate from high school and have consistently lower educational attainment at age 25. Changing schools over and over as families chase affordable rents negatively impacts children's educational outcomes, particularly for minorities and low-income families. Homeownership has many direct benefits to families and the surrounding community. Owners tend to remain in their homes longer than renters, and they bring stability to neighborhoods. That stability lets families become the fabric that makes each neighborhood special. Low and moderate income homeowners report higher life satisfaction, higher self-esteem, and higher perceived control over their lives. Lower and moderate income homeowners have better health outcomes and lower incidences of teenage pregnancy. Children of low and moderate income homeowners have a 9% higher math achievement and 7% higher reading achievement in school. They have a 13% higher graduation rate. Their children are less likely to receive or depend on public benefits in adulthood. Habitat and Cross Timber Homes are the largest providers of truly affordable 3 and 4 bedroom homes suitable for families with children. So I ask for your support to include that in the bond program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Taylor, followed by Michael Shackelford.
Good evening. I'm Michael Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Cross Timber Homes. Cross Timber Homes is a nonprofit organization that was started with the assistance of Habitat for Humanity. And what we do is we provide homeownership opportunities for families that earn just a little bit too much to qualify for the Habitat program. And I wanted to share some information with you tonight about that. I think there's been some discussion about homeownership for families earning up to 120% AMI. And I think there's this assumption that all of these families are earning $80,000 a year. And I just want to tell you that we sold 12 homes this year. Our home buyers on average earned $56,000 per year. And in AMI terms, we serve families ranging from 74% AMI to 114% AMI. And our home buyers are in occupations that you would recognize. They're social workers, they're retail store managers, paraprofessionals. And these are families that have really struggled to find affordable homeownership. You've probably heard that a family at 120% AMI can afford a $250,000 home. There may be some of those families out there, but they are few and far between. The families that we serve are living in the world, and they have kids, they have debt, they have limited savings, and so they need the type of homeownership assistance that we can provide. These are families that are in bidding wars every day, and they're not able to make a successful bid. We can't continue to do what we do without the support from the city, so that's why I'm here today to request that that homeownership for families earning up to 120% be included as an option for bond funding. It doesn't commit funds, but it gives us the opportunity to put together a proposal that'll be reviewed by the public, by council at a later time. So again, we just asked for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Shackelford, followed by Molly.
Good evening. My name is Michael Shackelford. I'm with the Alamo Community Group. I'm the Director of Policy for Alamo Community Group. We are a local nonprofit, Chodo, affordable housing developer. We have 10 properties in San Antonio, and we've served over 1,500 families and individuals. We have a social service program in our learning center and our computer lab. In addition, we have a veteran housing program for our homeless veterans in San Antonio, and we've served over 800 families with an 87% success rate. So what does that mean to you and us? That means after 2 months of rental assistance, they are paying rent to us, meaning they have their benefits in place or they've found a job. Also like to point out our most recent project that we've completed that the city of San Antonio participated in is our Museum Reach Lofts, which is in the Midtown of San Antonio. The Midtown Church participated in this project. It's a 9% tax credit with over 9,400 units. And we serve folks as low as 30% to 80% of the, 60% of the AMI. We have a current project in the pipeline right now, which is in District 5, and that's the Cattleman Square Lofts, where we're gonna have about 138 units. That was recently awarded a 4% tax exempt bond with the state of Texas. And we are also approaching a TERS and the city of San Antonio on partnership. We were awarded COSA fee waivers on that. Another project that we have in our pipeline is the H Street Lofts in District 2. And I wanna thank Councilman from District 2 for being here. And that's about 30 to 80% of the AMI in that project. We believe that the projects in affordable housing and the housing bond should be limited to gap funding, where you're able to spread out the monies in the housing bond to 40 to 50 projects if you limit 3 to 4.5 million per project. We should not be funding full projects, but limiting that dollars to gap funding. Again, just real quickly, lastly, I think it's very important to point out that nonprofits have the most flexibility in the use of non-federal dollars. So why take away the most innovative and less constrained dollars and give it to a federal government agency, which would have limits and regulations that would increase costs? Again, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Molly, followed by Leticia Sanchez, and Irma Hoffman. Y'all are welcome to come up as a group or individually.
Hello. I hear and listen with true heart and compassion and mentally exhausted sadness to several people because there are hundreds of people falling into homelessness weekly, mostly in D5 and D2. The city of San Antonio are evicting more and more elderly people from their long-standing home ownership statuses. More and more people who cannot sustain San Antonio high rents are being evicted daily in all 4 precincts. Stop with the mythological beliefs that we have enough agencies that can handle our explosive homelessness and newly evicted tenants and homeowners. The new movement in San Antonio will be the van life living because you refuse to put housing first programs as priority number 1. We need 30% AMI, not 60 or some other numbers you drudge up from affluent cities. San Antonio is not affluent. We are mostly low income and fixed low income people that can only afford 30% AMI. Listen to the West Side Coalition, top housing advocates, all those that speak for the poor and disenfranchised. Stop caving into these heartless developers and housing trends, gentrifying the poor and elderly out of their housing. Enough with the pretty park benches and greenery and shooting water slides, and just give us 30% AMI housing options. Housing is a human right and should not be treated like a commodity.
Thank you. Next is
Yeah,
Leticia.
the next group is the next set of folks is a group just pointing out the West Side historic neighborhood.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is Leticia Sanchez, and I'm a resident of District 5 and a member of the Historic West Side Residents Association. Our residents are legacy homeowners whose families have lived in our community for many generations. They're also renters and they're public housing residents. On behalf of our residents, we ask that housing bond funds be directed to 1, owner-occupied housing rehab, specifically for owners who are at or below 30% AMI and whose houses have been cited with code violations and threatened with demolition. Houses within our district are older homes and need maintenance, but many of our homeowners are elderly, disabled, and or working poor who can't afford to make improvements to homes and also keep up with increasing property taxes. We ask the city create a new housing rehab and program and fund that to assist homeowners with the cost of rehabbing homes. 2, the second thing we ask for is public housing. As you've heard before, there's currently a minimum 2-year wait list for people needing public housing. However, the city continues to pour city funds and give tax credits to market rate housing projects. It's important for committee members to understand that public housing differs from all other types of housing in that it provides more security and stability for its residents. For example, if a resident of an affordable housing apartment loses his or her job, that resident is still required to pay the same amount of monthly rent, and if not, can be evicted. For those in public housing who may experience a loss of income, adjustments are made to residents' rent when the source of income changes. Also, when we speak about public housing funds, we don't mean funding that will go towards mixed income housing projects where only a percentage of the units are set aside for public housing residents. We've heard some committee members speak of the importance of developing mixed income housing as a way of deconcentrating poverty in neighborhoods like the historic West Side. The mixed income housing concept that has been touted as the savior for low income neighborhoods. But I challenge those members here who believe in this concept to research the results of similar projects in the US, which show that mixed income projects have not benefited the poor, but but in fact have caused low-income residents to be saddled with additional burdens. The failure of mixed-income housing concept can be found right here in San Antonio, where the majority of residents who lived in Wheatley Courts and Victoria Courts were basically relocated to other parts of the city, away from their social networks and farther from their jobs. You may call this deconcentration of poverty, but for those who have lived through this type of housing investment, we call it displacement and gentrification. We can't continue to fund market rate or mixed income housing projects. I'd like to thank the Housing Bond Committee members for volunteering to do this important work. I'd also like to say that I, like most of you in this room, am very fortunate to have a house to go to after this meeting and am secure in knowing that I will continue to be housed barring any unforeseen natural disaster. But for many San Antonio residents, many of whom work to make San Antonio the city that it is, and those who are disabled or elderly who live on a fixed income, that's not the case. We ask that you put yourself in their shoes when deciding on how housing bond funds should be allocated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jessica Nicholson, followed by Kristen Davila.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm a resident of District 1. I'm also a member of the Texas Organizing Project Housing Justice Campaign. And I'm here to demand that the committee use the $150 million bond to address the following needs. $50 million for single-family home preservation, $30 million for public housing preservation, $20 million for public housing production, $25 million for multifamily rental production, $20 million for single-family home production, and $5 million for no-barrier permanent supportive housing. The city of San Antonio, in their, quote, decade of downtown, have prioritized the desires of developers while leaving working people and working families behind. Private rental developers have received millions of dollars of tax breaks to displace hundreds of families and to build complexes with increasingly smaller numbers of truly affordable rental units. A University of Texas School of Law report published 2 weeks ago showed that over 600 families were moved out of their homes in the last 5 years alone by San Antonio. 337 of these orders to vacate of their homes were issued without any hearing process for the resident. Of the 209 residents who received orders to vacate in the last 3 years, only 8 of them received relocation assistance. This combination and confluence of factors, as well as other instances of the city deciding not to invest in residents' needs, have harmed renters and have harmed homeowners. San Antonio has become increasingly unaffordable, and the city has had a hand in making it so. This has to change. It's necessary that all $150 million be targeted towards public housing and towards households at or below 30% AMI. We need to invest in the needs of our neighbors who have been ignored for far too long by city development that puts profit before people as a matter of fact. We have an opportunity to actually meet the needs of the people who are the backbone of this city, and we can't wait any longer. Housing is, in fact, a human right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kristen Davila, followed by Karen Munoz.
Good evening, committee members. I'm Kristen Davila, and I'm the president and executive director of Merced Housing Texas. I also serve on the Housing Commission and on the Successfully Aging and Living in San Antonio Housing Work Group. Merced, the organization that I am here representing tonight, is a faith-based nonprofit provider and developer of affordable housing. We were founded 26 years ago by 9 different congregations of Catholic sisters who remain committed to our work today. At Merced, we meet our mission of creating and strengthening healthy communities through 3 main programs. We own affordable multifamily housing, we have an owner-occupied home repair program, and we provide supportive resident services for the residents and homeowners we serve through each of those programs. We serve residents with a wide variety of income levels, 0% AMI up to 80% AMI. And in many times, even though we're required to serve people up to 80% AMI, we actually serve people that have a lower income. And one example of that is a project, Kings Court, that's in District 1. Half of the residents living there have incomes that are less than 30% AMI. And we've done that intentionally, kept rents low so that they can continue to live there. The owner-occupied repair program, we make health and safety repairs and modifications for low-income homeowners at no cost to them. The program is funded by a variety of sources, including contracts with the city and the county, private foundations, and individual contributions. We know that a lot of times an affordable place to call home isn't enough to ensure residents aren't at risk of eviction or being displaced. We offer supportive services for all the residents and homeowners we serve. At our apartment communities, that means there's a resident services coordinator on site. For homeowners we serve, that means there's a social worker on staff that meets with them. I urge you, as you continue this work tonight, please keep the folks that are going to be impacted by your decisions at the forefront of your decisions. And know that there's not one solution to the affordable housing crisis. that's in the city, but many. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Karen Munoz, followed by Rick Trevino.
Hi, my name is Karen Munoz. I'm a renter, a law student at St. Mary's, and I'm a product of public housing myself. I encourage every member of this committee to read the UT Law Report that was just passed out to each of you. I also encourage each of you to listen to today's episode of The Source, where Michael Shannon, the director of the city's Developmental Service Department, responds to the report and essentially okays the city's systematic displacement of families in our city's poorest zip codes, specifically families and residents in District 5, co-chair Shirley Gonzalez's former constituents. One thing that struck me in particular was that Mr. Shannon did not once himself mention the families displaced. All he focused on was procedure and bureaucracy, seemingly entirely neglecting that what we're talking about is demolishing people's homes. I encourage you committee members throughout this process to remember that you're dealing with families, not numbers, not cold bureaucratic procedures, not just money. The city has essentially created a code enforcement to demolition pipeline, and I urge you to take seriously this problem and to do everything in your power to invest in public housing specifically to help solve this problem. It is absolutely necessary that all $150 million be targeted towards public housing and towards 30% AMI or lower. Specifically, I request that you allocate $50 million from the 2022 bond to repair homes for Saha families. HUD has underfunded public housing for decades, and Saha really needs about $341 million just for upkeep, but the federal government only gives $12 million per year to address this need. I also support all of TOP's demands. I just don't have time to list them today. And again, I just hope that you remember that there is a real problem in this community and you're dealing with real people. And that's been said by others before, but please do everything in your power to keep that at the forefront.
Thank you. Next, we have Rick Trevino, followed by Zekeromo and Nick Pena. Y'all are welcome to come up together as a group or individually.
So I attended the last housing bond meeting, and I, like many on the bond committee, I want to see this money go to people below 30% AMI. I wanted to go to Saha, and the reason is because working people, poor people don't win. We never win in the city. Just take a walk outside, and you'll see the Baldwin, a big giant albatross of this mixed income grift. I just read last week, Bill Schoen, big developer out here. Some of y'all know him. He's complaining like, oh, the CHIP incentive program's gone. Oh, I can't make profit off of luxury homes. He's complaining about the Elmira Street project, $3.6 million in tax breaks, right? One of his developments, the South Line, the smallest apartment you could find is less than 698 square feet. You know what the rent is? $1,720. Why are the taxpayers of San Antonio subsidizing the development of luxury apartments? And there are people on this committee that treat people like us, people that are complaining, that have to yell because we only get 2 minutes to ever talk about stuff. Your way hasn't worked. Take a look at that report, ousted. I'm glad to see Michael Shannon here. Shirley, hundreds of families in your district were having their homes demolished. And what does it say about our city that a councilwoman, a leader, could allow those kind of outcomes? And then you chair the housing committee. How is it that this committee is filled with people with massive conflicts of interest? And the ethics presentation, what does it say? Well, it's up to you to take a step back. They put the onus on the individual. And this is only advisory. If you guys come up with something the city doesn't like, they don't even have to listen to you. Guys, it's time for working people to win.
Thank you. Next, we have Zekeromo, followed by Nick Pena. After that is John Boyd.
Just these are two individuals, just so you're aware.
Good evening. My name is Zekeromo. I'm executive director of the Arcasas Resident Council. And we've been providing services, housing services and affordable housing since 1991. Our mission started to provide housing for homeownership housing for public residents of the projects. We since have moved on and are a HUD certified agency, and we're a Chodo building affordable homes for the last 30 years. Our CASA does scattered infill development, which means we locate vacant lots out there, the neighborhoods, mostly the west side, near west side, south side, east side, and we target those neighborhoods to build housing where people can return back to the neighborhood, or if they're renting in the neighborhood, they can find home ownership there. We need more single-family homes that are subsidized with higher gap financing and other price-cutting strategies such as impact fee waivers, down payment assistance, land banking, et cetera, to allow more families to realize the American dream of home ownership. We need to allow for more funds for home ownership, for the construction of new homes for families. Rental units are needed, of course, but home ownership also allows a person to build wealth for themselves and their children. It turns vacant lots into tax-generating properties that benefit the school district, the city, the hospital, and so on. It increases property values throughout the area, through that neighborhood area. Of course, we need to make sure that it doesn't impact too negatively some of the families on limited income. It also strengthens a family's physical and mental health knowing that they have safe housing. It brings in new income for surrounding businesses and services. And it also adds pride to the surrounding families who many times upgrade by themselves. All I want to add, also finish out with the idea that I grew up in Austin, and I've seen the gentrification over there, what it's done to East Austin especially. And we have a chance to prevent the Austinization of San Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Nick Pena, followed by John Boyd.
Hello, good evening. My name is John Boyd. I'm the Vice President of the Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association, and I'd like to propose temporary housing for the homeless. We have over 100 homeless between I-35 and South Zamora on Commerce and Buena Vista, where I live at the Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association, and I'm also on the committee for the Advocate Social Services. So we're here to talk about temporary housing for the homeless. What seems to be working in Los Angeles is what I propose. We're going to use this design for a homeless project called Housing First, which provides housing regardless of circumstance. Recipients do not have to be sober to receive housing. This is a federal mandate that is being handed down by the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness. Now, this is the only agency at the federal level with the sole responsibility of ending homelessness. It works over 19 federal agencies and departments with partners in both public and private sectors to improve federal spending outcomes for homelessness. Now, the beaches were being filled in Los Angeles with homelessness, so much that nobody could get to the beach from Santa Monica. So they decided to use container homes and cut them up into small pieces like the ones we propose. And it's really needs to be done. So I want to thank you for your time. I've already sent this to your committee, and hopefully you can review it and see what we can do to improve the homelessness situation here, because what we're doing isn't working. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ed Hinojosa, followed by Edward Gonzalez.
Katie, after Edward Gonzalez, who do we have? That way we could have a third queued up.
So Nick Pena deferred his time to John Boyd. So we have Ed Hinojosa and Edward Gonzalez next.
And then after Edward Gonzalez.
Emilia Valdez.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ed Hinojosa. I have the honor and privilege to serve as President and CEO of the San Antonio Housing Authority. We house 50,000 residents, some of the most vulnerable people in the city. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. It's not possible to cover the state of affordable housing in 3 minutes, so I have a few points for you to consider. As you know, we are in a housing crisis that started before the pandemic, and last year only exacerbated the crisis. Pardon me. At Saha, we saw our waiting list grow more than 50%. It grew from 35,000 to 50,000 residents at most recent count. And as the pandemic endures, we expect it to continue to climb. 1 in 15 residents in San Antonio is on the Saha wait list, needing access to safe and stable housing. Our fellow neighbors and community members need our help, and they need it right away. They expect us to create impactful changes and to increase affordability and not just maintain the status quo. Together, we have to be innovative and compassionate in our decision-making. As we move forward in this broad process and even beyond, let us not forget the thousands of our fellow citizens in our communities who are depending on many in this room. We cannot forget the Saha elderly residents who have given lifetime to our city. We owe it to them to give them a quality home, to age with dignity and compassion. We cannot forget about half of the Saha residents who are children. They are depending on us to provide a gateway to the future. We cannot forget that investing in our young folks is an investment in the future success of our city. We cannot forget about all the families who are trying to make ends meet and improve their quality of life. We owe it to them to find a better housing solution so that they too can live with dignity and compassion. My colleagues who are with me today have an information sheet which goes into detail about our housing assistance programs and much of the demographics of the residents we serve, and how we can increase housing options immediately and within the next year. So we are happy to provide you with a copy. 84 years ago, this community came together and established the first housing in our city, which we now know as Alazon. I know by working together, we can come together once again and meet the needs of our community. You can write me anytime with your ideas and thoughts, and I can be reached at ed@saha.org. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
Thank you. Next is Edward Gonzalez, followed by Emilia Valdez.
Good evening, Madam Co-Chairs and committee members. Again, my name is Edward Gonzalez, and I'm the Executive Director of the Housing First Community Coalition. We're a new nonprofit in the East Side in District 2 in County Commissioner Precinct 4. So this evening, I'd like to talk a little bit about permanent supportive housing. I'd like to get your support on that. I'm here in advocating for permanent supportive housing. We know there are many needs in the community. The needs outweigh the resource. In any allocation of resources, that's always going to be the issue, right? But permanent supportive housing is something that is important to my heart. It's important to the community, and I want to kind of spend a couple of seconds pointing out some of those benefits of having permanent supportive housing in the community. Now, our organization is undertaking a initiative to build that for this community. It'll be the first permanent supportive housing single site complex in this community, and it'll be in Council District 2. So what does it have? Systems. Permanent supportive housing has benefits to multiple systems, some of which are the jail system, right? So we help reduce the number of jail visits that people experiencing chronic homelessness will visit. We also have a direct impact on emergency room visits. People that are experiencing homelessness are usually visiting the hospital every day. The judicial system, the jails, it also relieves the stress of our local homeless shelters. So Haven for Hope, we're not in competition with Haven. This is the next step for Haven residents. This is also the next step for residents that are sleeping in your neighborhoods. So and permanent supportive housing takes the most chronically most vulnerable homeless. So you might have an individual that's over 50 years old, and those are the people that we're going to serve. So thank you for advocating for permanent supported housing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, Emilia Valdez, followed by Jim Leonard.
Good evening. My name is Emilia Valdez, and today I'm representing Mi Barrio No Se Vende, but work closely with the Historic Westside Resident Association. We help them as a registered association. We assist residents with resources available through the city of San Antonio. We also receive notices for potential threat of demolition given by code compliance. We attend hearings at the Building Standard Board on behalf of the residents to help them understand the process of the scope of work needed to keep them from demolishing the historic shotgun houses. Scope of work can be estimated in the thousands, and people can't afford to fix them and end up being displaced. Currently, we have casitas pending for demolition, empty lots side by side, being threatened from outsiders to make a profit in a community already struggling financially. Through 2021, housing bonds would save our residents to stay in their home and have some relief of mental stress. For example, currently, Richard Montiano sits by his casita after a 10-hour workday to protect it from demolition. The Lopez family, mother and daughter, pleaded to City Council during a speak up session to save their casitas, and the daughter cried for her future. What was going to happen to her casita? Evictions swarmed through the public housing, COVID, and a freeze that went wrong and created damages and loss of lives. The 2021 housing bond funds will give our residents a roof over their heads and some mental relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jim Leonard, followed by Ana Castaneda.
Hello, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jim Leonard. I'm a single-family home builder, small local builder in the city of San Antonio. For a number of years, we participated with the city to acquire vacant lots, build single-family homes on them, and sell them at well below market prices. We do this by being able to obtain fee waivers from SAWS for impact fees, permit fee waivers from the city of San Antonio, and anything else that's available to us to bring the cost of a house down. Currently in San Antonio, only 10% of the market is homes priced below $200,000. We build homes that are well under that price. And the median price of San Antonio, we saw in the paper a few days ago, is now at about $300,000. The new homes that we build that are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, over 1,000 square feet, sell for less than half that price. And like I said, we're able to do that through waivers and partnering with the city. We acquire lots that the city has purchased or owns in their surplus inventory. We don't do any tear downs. We don't displace anyone. We just build a new home on a vacant lot. And that's been a very successful program for us. But without that partnership that exists between private builders like ourselves and the city of San Antonio, it would be impossible to build homes at that price range. So for that reason, I support the bond issue and look forward to trying to house more people as well as we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ana Castaneda, followed by Anya Barte, and then Marlene Stricker, and you're welcome to come up as a group or individually.
Thank you. My name is Ana Castaneda. I am a community member. I have 6 children. I currently live in the Alazan Apache apartment complexes. I apologize. I'm very nervous. And so the Saha is in need of funding beyond, I think, some of you guys' very clear understanding. And so it's been about 1.5 years since I've been able to actually cook anything in my kitchen. We're living out of plastic containers, and it cost me money, even more money, to even just cook. To take a shower, it costs us extra money. I'm having to put paper towels in drainage areas to make sure that I don't even want to mention it, you guys are eating here today. And so that's what me and our family is having to deal with. I have children from 18 months to 16 years old, and our daily routine is to sweep every corner and crevice in our apartment complex. And it's caused me to not be able to pay rent on time. I've spent $600 to go into hotels to be able to bomb my apartment. Saha has done everything it could. It's ripped cabinets out the kitchen, in the rooms. You know, it's came and done its monthly inspection, infesting the place as well. And so I've also have been awarded a Section 8 voucher, which I was not able to use because of the developer's criteria in which I do not qualify. And I currently qualify under the current criteria that Saha holds. And so an example, trying to get into the San Juan Squares, that income that would allow, that I've been able to I've been gotten 6 raises being in a program within Saha. I don't qualify because of my background, but it would have been in my budget. There would have been more room. Right now, me and my kids are from wall to wall, 6 kids in a 3-bedroom apartment. And our community also needs education. So there probably would have been more of us here if we understood how important it was to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Anya Barte, followed by Marlene Stricker.
Thank you, distinguished guests and council people, for your time. My name is Anya Barte. I'm the president of SX9 Foundation and an affiliate partner of the Heroes Initiative. We are a nonprofit construction organization specializing in the affordable housing industry. We do low to affordable based income housing for veterans and non-veterans. We provide wraparound services for individuals needing assistance in their lives, period. We have community partnerships with the NHS, which is Neighborhood Housing Services of America, and My City is My Home. We have created a project by the name of Project NOAA. The NOAA stands for Net Zero Affordable Housing. We will be using modular units as the structure and combining them with sustainable elements that go into the house. Rainwater collection, water recapture, reuse, solar power, wind, everything that you can think of that we need to be using already, because we all suffered the same blizzard. We need to provide affordable, safe housing for every single person. Whether that means that we have to come together and do different things, this is it. This is why we are here. We're advocating for help on this Project NOAA. We are supported by Senator Jose Menendez in our effort. We have been published to help and establish relationships with other non-GNOs that do the same work we do. I want to commemorate everyone for their efforts here. And my name is Anya Barte again. Please come see me afterwards so we can come together and do this privately if we can't get the city to cooperate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Marlene Stricker, followed by Ramon Velasquez.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here today. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I am Marlene Stricker with SX9 Foundation, one of the founders, along with Anya Barte that you just heard speak to you guys. So we actually do a lot of advocating, and we volunteer a lot in the community for the past 2 years. We have a lot of familiar faces in here. We work with NHSD, ACOG, APS, My City is My Home, TRLA. They send us clients that they don't know how to help. So when they're getting evicted, they call me and they ask me to help them locate a home. So we usually help people that are usually only make $700 a month. They're on a fixed income. So a lot of processes and programs that we have created, which is in helping these people, we call a lot of property managers, and we negotiate with either trading with materials to fix up their place so they can get in immediately if they don't have any time, or we also help them fill out the application with NHSD so they can relocate and get into that place. We also find volunteers so we can help them move in if they can't do it themselves. They have disabilities or there's just no way for them to move it. We do it ourselves. We literally pick the couches up and move it there ourselves. And we've been doing that for the past couple of weekends with Molly, which is, she works with TRLA, and she's very good at helping us and advocating and gathering those volunteers too, so we can get this done for the families. We have so many services. We don't reinvent the wheel. There's so many nonprofits that are really doing the work. We just resource out and we just check on them and make sure that they are being helped. Again, we are focusing on affordable housing and income-based properties, 30%. There's so many properties that are not being used that we can utilize. and making affordable. There's also so many great real estate agents and people out there that find housing solutions. They find houses, they get them under contract and they sell them. So I think it'd be a great idea to allocate some of that money in buying homes so we can fix up and we can put people in and have it affordable, like HUD, income base and all that good stuff. So again, my name is Marlene Stricker with SX9 Foundation. You can reach me at 726-888-0824 or Marlena at sx9foundation.org. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you all.
Thank you. Next is Ramon Velasquez, followed by Kevin Linnell.
Good evening, House and Bond Committee members, and thank you for volunteering your time for the good of our community. I am here as a public housing resident to request that at least $50 million be granted to San Antonio Housing Authority to be used to repair my apartment and other homes of many other Saha residents like me. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has underfunded public housing authorities like Saha for years and years. San Antonio Housing Authority really needs about over $300 million just for upkeep, but the federal government only grants Saha $12 million per year to address this need. That means it would take over 28 years to repair local public housing, and that doesn't include any new repairs. It is important to help Saha maintain their units because they provide housing assistance to families throughout the city, including families like mine earning less than $12,500 annually. The San Antonio Housing Authority provides housing assistance to over 27,000 households, including over 65,000 children, adults, and senior citizens. Among them, I'm one of them. Approximately half are individuals under 18 and nearly half are elderly or disabled households. 16,000 of those families who make less than a third of the median income. The 5,632 Saha public housing units make up most of the deeply affordable units in San Antonio. Across the country, the number of public housing units has decreased by more than 200,000 since the mid-1990s, as housing agencies have had to demolish or remove units from the stock because of deterioration resulting from long-term underfunding. At one point in time, San Antonio Housing had 7,800 public housing units, but due to the lack of funding for maintenance, Saha units have been reduced to 6,000 total as of today. That is almost 2,000 units of permanently affordable housing that has been lost in San Antonio due to underinvestment by HUD. That is unacceptable, and we as a city have an opportunity with this bond to right those wrongs and keep senior citizens, children, disabled, and low-income families who call public housing their home.
Ramon,
I take
thank you
pride
so much. We're a
in
bit
my-
over time, but I appreciate your comments.
Thank you so much for your time. I'll cover this the next time.
We're going to come back to Kevin Linnell. So next is Jessica Guerrero, followed by Linda Davila.
Katie, we could fit Kevin in after Jessica.
Buenas tardes. My name is Jessica Guerrero. I'm a lifelong resident of San Antonio, a proud Southeast Sider, and a housing justice advocate. I served as a member and chair of the city's Housing Commission, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, committee members, that city staff's insistence on keeping recommendations for the housing bond general serves their agenda, not the marginalized communities of our city who are living a desperate and long-lasting housing crisis catalyzed by city initiatives led by some of the same staff now charged with shaping solutions for it. Any of your valuable input that actually makes it into that staff, into what staff relays to council and mayor, makes it in because staff found a way for it to serve their agenda, not because it may serve our communities. So please, committee members, insist on specificity and be strategic in your recommendations to benefit marginalized communities. Communicate directly with your council members and their colleagues and the mayor. Please consider my recommendations for this housing bond as informed by countless ongoing exchanges with people directly impacted by housing and labor displacement and by community scholars and housing experts. This bond should prioritize quality housing repair, rehab, and preservation for people with incomes of 30% AMI and below, all the way down to $0 income. This bond should support new housing with priority for unhoused and unsheltered people. This bond should support public housing at the lowest AMIs. This bond must include stipulations for sustained deep affordability that holds housing developers to account for their role in the economic progress or regress of San Antonio, i.e. affordability covenants of 25 years or more. Please note that currently the city's preferred developers enjoy tax-free covenants of 35 to 99 years, some of them for occupation of public lands. Projects funded by this housing bond must require displacement impact assessments, including displacement of houses and unhoused people. This is not a study to examine impacts of previous displacements. Project displacement impact assessments should reveal the potential for displacement that may be caused by each bond-funded project. Projects funded by this housing bond must require public participation beyond the current minimum standard for publicly funded development projects. Presentations to council and mayor on projects to be funded by this housing bond must include detailed reporting on results of project displacement impact assessments and on the public participation efforts completed for each project.
Thank you, Jessica.
Housing is a human right.
We're a bit over time now,
and
but
direct
thank you so
public
much.
funds to public benefits. Thank you.
Next, we have Kevin Linnell, followed by Linda Davila.
Ooh, gotta take my glasses. Hi, my name is Kevin Linnell. I am a resident of the District 2. I'm a member of the Texas Organized Project Board of Directors of Bexar County. And I am here to demand that the committee to use the $150 million bond to address the following needs, like the $500 million for a single family home preservation, $30 million for public housing, and $20 million for public housing production, $25 million for multi rental production, $20 million for single family home production, and $5 million for no barrier permanent supported housing. I got a quote here from Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm sick and tired because I'm sick and tired. This is what it is. People getting sick and tired of homeless, no roof on their head, house flipping. This is it. We need to tell the city council to wake up and smell the coffee.
Thank you. Linda Davila, followed by Michelle Daniels.
Hi, I'm Linda Davila, and with me is Sister Gabriela Lohan with the Congregation of the Sisters of the Holy Spirit. We are COPS Metro leaders here representing over 100,000 residents of our 35 institutional members across the city. Housing is one of the most basic, important human safety net need that COPS Metro has long, hard fought for to fulfill. We are asking that you set aside at least 50% of the housing bond allocation, or $75 million, toward owner-occupied rehab. It is important to help people stay in their house. It not only helps community connections stay strong, it also is more environmentally sustainable to keep people in their homes than to displace them and then build new non-affordable structures. In addition, the owner-occupied rehab program already exists, and it can be efficiently and effectively improved to expand owner-occupied rehab to those who need it most. Please help keep our neighbors safe and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Michelle Daniels, followed by Katie Mirza.
Good evening, committee, and good evening, all of you all who are here to support. My name is Michelle Daniels. I am a member of the Texas Organizing Project, but more importantly, I am a homeowner in the beautiful District 2, the home of our beautiful City Council Representative Jalen McKee Rodriguez. I am here because I want to give a little testimony about the importance of the housing development program the city of San Antonio has. I had the opportunity during the pandemic to start making phone calls from Family Service Organization just to see the impact that the pandemic had had on everybody, and it was enormous, enormous. One of the questions read, do you need home repairs? A lot of our seniors needed that service. A lot of them did not know about that service, that it was available. I applied. I am now able to be assisted, and I would like to see more money poured into that program. My home is over 65 years old. My parents landed there post World War II. The neighborhood is right by the AT&T Center. As you know, as more homes go down, then the new people come in, they build these new houses next to the falling down homes. But there are still residents that are maintaining these homes that need some help. There's no I in team, TEAM. We all are here for the same purpose. We all have the same needs. We know that you all will look deeply into the budget to allocate the monies as best as you can. But please, this is a very important program, and I humbly ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Katie Mirza, followed by Ezekiel Escamilla.
Good evening. My name is Katie Mirza, and I'm a renter in District 3. I ask that the committee follow the Texas Organizing Project's recommended allocation of the bond, putting the entire $150 million to public housing and households at or below 30% AMI. This funding should not go to mixed income or market rate housing. While middle-income families may face challenges in finding ideal housing in San Antonio, they do not experience the crisis that we have in our city's severely underfunded lower income and public housing. At the current rate of federal funding that Saha receives for maintenance, it would take 28 years just to fund repairs that are currently needed today. And this has led to a 23% reduction in Saha units. We need to use this funding to create housing units for residents who have been waiting years on the Saha waiting list, for the city to make public housing units livable for those currently living in them, and to help lower income residents make needed repairs such as those needed from Winter Storm Uri. So again, I ask the committee to dedicate the entire bond to public housing and households at or below 30% AMI.
Thank you. Next is Ezekiel Escamilla, followed by Jacob Tucker.
Taking me a little while, but I'm here. Thank you, sir. Okay, my name's Ezekiel Escamilla. I lived here for 52 years, and I'm a proud member of the TOPS organization committee. And I don't know how I landed over here, but anyway, uh, the first thing of all is it's a pleasure and an honor to see all you guys take your time and effort to be here with all of us. But I'm just gonna be quick. First of all, oh, okay. My name is Ezekiel Escamilla. I'm a resident of District 2, where Mr. Trevino was here, but I don't know, forgot the other guy's name. But anyway, I'm sorry. But anyway, my issue is um, I'm a father of 2 kids, and my wife and my mother-in-law and my everybody else. But anyway, I'm gonna try to finish in less than 5 minutes. I bought me a house on 127 Savannah, which is y'all's house whenever y'all want to go there. If it wasn't for my wife and my kids, that they forced me to buy a house because I used to work for CPS and everybody else and all the government here. Anyway, my house is when the pandemic hit, it was nice. And then after the pandemic hit, after a year and a half or so, I was struggling because I had my mother-in-law had gotten sick, my nephew got sick, and the house during the pandemic we were renting. We used my house like for 9 family members to come and stay at my house. But after the pandemic hit, here comes the weather now. The weather came, everybody was fine, everybody got to go to their casa. And then after that, my floor lifted up. So I didn't have enough money, so I had to borrow from the bank. And I had to scratch to fix my house anyway. I paid $15,000 off of my pocket. And of course, I'm still paying my mortgage. I think I owe 51 million or whatever it is. But I'm here to support the other committee members from my district, because once they saw me start remodeling my house, they started too. So, but that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jacob Tucker, followed by Brad McMurray.
I'm Jake Tucker. I'm a resident of District 3. So this bond is a choice of what kind of economy we want for our city. The path San Antonio and most other cities in the U.S. have chosen is one of continuing displacement, impoverishment, and hollowing out of the resources available to our people. Because this is the dominant path, I fear we may fail to understand the dangers and consequences of privileging developer needs. The path of serving developers and speculators, in fact, raises the cost of living for our residents. This includes rising rents, home prices, property taxes, water, electricity, transportation, and so on, which benefits only those who directly profit from those price increases and/or contracts. These policies are directly tied to homelessness, devastating debts, poor health, chronic joblessness, and in some cases, an increase in crimes of desperation and substance abuse to cope. Conversely, you have a chance to actually reduce the cost of living by guaranteeing homes for all residents of the city and by setting a price floor with abundant public housing. Promising adequate, efficient, affordable, and guaranteed utilities will increase the health and stability of our workers and their children. Until recently, mainstream economics understood that public infrastructure is best utilized as a public good to reduce the cost of living and, by extension, the cost of doing business. And also understood this public infrastructure should cover all things required for the laborer to live, as drastic increases in prices require higher wages to survive. What's left is for the workforce to suffer and grow resentful of the government, or provoke a labor movement to extract from their employers that which you are unwilling to provide. All because developers and speculators wanted to continue as parasites, feeding off the host of our San Antonio workforce and productive businesses. With all of the preceding in mind, I call, along with many other people in this room, for the housing priorities of this body to focus on housing absolutely everybody in our city and ensuring that housing prices never get to the point of economic strangulation for our families and workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brad McMurray, followed by Walter Martinez.
Yeah, we're each going to speak though. So, yeah. Co-chairs and bond committee members, my name is Brad McMurray, and I am the Vice President of Property Development for Prospera here in San Antonio. We're a 501c3 nonprofit affordable housing provider established here in San Antonio in 1993 to help address the limited availability of quality affordable housing. And we do a number of things. One of them is affordable housing development. We do about 3 or 4 projects a year here in San Antonio, as well as over the entire state, or the south and central part. And we also have a wholly owned property management company where we oversee about 50 affordable properties through Central and South Texas. This includes about 4,200 units and serves about 8,800 residents. In San Antonio, we have 18 properties that serve about 2,200 units. And we also provide resident supportive services. This is really our mission. And we have a team of about 40 staff providing on-site support services and programs to over 40 housing communities. Now, our vision for restoring communities has resulted in the steady growth of opportunities for residents to achieve both their personal and professional goals through the stability afforded by a comprehensive approach of the provision of affordable housing and supportive services for these residents. And Prospera's history and track record is focused on the equity lens since our inception. For example, 56% of those 8,800 residents are below 30% AMI. Another 31% are between 30 and 50%. So 87% of our residents are below 50%. We also have 85% of our residents are people of color. And also, Prospera currently assists primarily females, with 68% of our residents being female. 40% of our residents are children, and another 21% are seniors. So we understand that your charge today is to establish the housing priorities. And the following is Prospera's position in the best way to address San Antonio's critical housing need based on our 25 plus years of experience. We believe rental housing is the best way to address the extensive existing need for affordable housing by providing the greatest number of affordable units in the most efficient manner possible. This is especially true of our lower income families. If I may, could I take a little this time? Yeah.
Yes, we can add a minute
Okay,
there.
I'm sorry. We concur also that we need to prioritize 30 to 60% of multifamily affordable rental. Because these households are in the greatest need, and doing so addresses and prevents housing instability that can lead to homelessness. Affordable multifamily rental also provides the longest term affordability, with 40 to 45-year affordability periods through land use restrictions that are placed on the property as a condition of funding, in addition to strict annual compliance. Now, multifamily rental has the required density to facilitate the support infrastructure needed for the efficient and effective provision of resident services to promote the desired financial independence and help our residents prosper. We support prioritizing gap financing for tax credit developments that target deeper affordability, so that serve more 30% units. And this is very important because if you look at the SHIP 10-year funding budget, 2.3 billion of the 3.3 total billion is from this leveraged funds that come from tax credits. Now, we concur with SHIP's focus to increase the city investment in housing and to support the local growth of local nonprofits.
Thank you. Next, so Walter Martinez was with Brad McMurray. So next we have Kosa McColvin, followed by Jeremiah White Cotton.
Katie, if you could give us the last 4, I think that might help.
Sounds good. So we have Kosa McColvin, Jeremiah White Cotton, Chris Sanchez, and then Nikisha Baker.
If you could all come up, that would be very helpful.
Okay. Hi, Cosimo Colvin. I'm with the Tier 1 Neighborhood Coalition. Regardless of the veracity of the numbers and the city's policies, what the ousted report shows is that we have an extraordinary and unacceptable number of occupied structures or homes in our city that are in such a condition of decline that they are considered dangerous. This, in combination with the Office of Historic Preservation's study from a couple of years ago that concluded that the most affordable housing in San Antonio is the existing housing, should act as a catalyst to provide not only more funding for owner-occupied repairs, but also for case management. As a longstanding member of the Beacon Hill community and co-chair of its Zoning and Urban Design Committee, I have firsthand experience in families that have been evicted due to the condition of their homes and families that have been helped by the owner-occupied rehab and reconstruction program. In the case of the former, where I know that we were able to successfully relocate an elderly woman living in a home, it took intense, time-consuming, and dedicated efforts by the community, by the neighbors, by us. We got it done, but it took a lot of volunteer community time to make it happen in a way that provided for a decent transition. In the latter cases, it has also required a community support network. The process, God bless it, takes a team of folk to keep it on track. The city relies on processes that follow the law and are administratively expeditious. And while I do believe that resident safety plays into their decisions, and I do believe that they are helping people, as an institution, they are in general insensitive to the plight of their most vulnerable people. Almost all residents that are involved in a government-initiated action are quickly overwhelmed and intimidated. We can and need to do better. I would like to see resources that would be added to provide more case management that's not just about money for buildings, but money for people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jeremiah White Cotton.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm so glad to be able to hear everyone's desire and plea for how the money should be used moving forward. So my name is Jeremiah White Cotton. Homelessness is a huge problem. I'm partnered with SX9 Foundation, as you heard, Anya Barte and Marlene Stricker, and some other local nonprofits in the area. It's very important to get the funding for, sustainable housing and being able to have a source of funding that can continue to make sustainable housing a thing moving into the future. My plea, though, is before you donate to any local nonprofit or you donate the funds to our nonprofit, I believe it's very important that the money should first be protected in an insurance product that doesn't just protect and grow the funds, but it also gives the user immediate use of the cash while being able to creating a death benefit on the cash you were already going to donate anyway. The reason for this tool is it's important as we must extend and grow the funds we already have, rather than us needing to come back again and again and again in the future. And due to inflation, shortages, and lack of help, we need a sustainable resource that gives the cash more than one use. Not only does this type of insurance protect the funds, it helps raise those that are trying to help get out of poverty, get into sustainable living by utilizing that cash with the death benefit. I believe this will create greater funding in the source in the future, and also continued funding as we move forward into 2022. And so, like I said, I'm Jeremiah, and it's great being here.
Thank you. Next is Chris Sanchez.
Good evening. So here we are yet again, fighting over the crumbs before the crumbs have even been approved. I commend everybody that has come up tonight to speak. Everybody makes valid arguments. My name is Chris Sanchez. I'm the Executive Director of Neighborhood Housing Services of San Antonio, NHSSA, not to be confused with the city, NHSD, who is similarly named. We do affordable housing. We are a full cycle homeownership center. I could sit here and tell you that we're designated by the Department of Treasury, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We're a CHOTO. We have $3.5 million in loans outstanding that we have helped families over the almost 40 years of existence that we've been here to buy homes. But none of that matters. What really matters, what it boils down to, are the families that we serve. And I'm reminded about Ms. Camacho, who arrived at our front doorstep needing an affordable rental place. She wasn't ready for homeownership. This is somebody that worked in the hotel industry during COVID. She got laid off, furloughed after she became a renter of ours. We stepped in and helped her with rental assistance for the 3 months she needed to get back on her feet. I'm reminded about Mr. Gomez, single father with 4 kids, who we purchased the home that he was living in, terrible condition. I can't believe, I'm ashamed that landlords would allow people to live in homes in that type of condition. So I'm here to advocate for 3 things. We need infill housing, we need new construction, and we need to preserve our existing housing stock. All you have to do is drive around the inner city and you'll see that our affordable housing stock is the homes that have been here for many years, many decades. And we need more funding to help families preserve hope. And I am here to advocate for families up to 120% of area median income, because they don't need a hand out, they need a hand up. And oftentimes the money and the work that we do is able to give them that hand up. It's the difference of them having a warm home at night to put their family safely into. So again, I advocate that the money be distributed in such a manner where we preserve hope for those hardworking families that don't make a lot of money, but they still need a little bit of assistance to get over the edge to get a home. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker tonight is Nikisha Baker.
Good evening. My name is Nikisha Baker, and I have the honor of serving as the president and CEO of SAM Ministries. SAM Ministries has served San Antonians who are experiencing or facing homelessness for almost 40 years. This year, we have served almost 5,000 San Antonians with housing and supportive services, and we are one of the only local service providers who operates across HUD's continuum of care, which is designed to eliminate homelessness in a community. I'd like to share the words of one of our clients as he recently wrote a letter of thanks to us. I remember when I was homeless and living on the streets. I remember the cold nights without a blanket to keep warm and the times I would get soaked by the rain. Now I can take a shower with soap and use a clean towel whenever I need to bathe instead of using rainwater or trying to bathe in a sink at a public restroom. If I hadn't gotten off the street, I would probably have been victimized more or maybe even killed without a place to share a home-cooked meal with a close friend. I was blessed with a second chance at life. When Sam Ministry Street Outreach Team encountered Joel, he was a substance user with undiagnosed schizophrenia and had been homeless for 55 months. He cycled between shelter, hospital, and unsheltered homelessness, but we were able to focus on employing a housing-first approach to get him into a permanent supportive housing program. Currently, San Antonio has offered 1,700 housing referrals through our local continuum of care. Only 84 of those are for permanent supportive housing. Joel's homelessness would not have been helped. It would not have been overcome with a diversion program or with brief assistance. He needed long-term, intensive case management and wraparound supportive services to become successful. Joel today, Joel James Flores, has a part-time job at Walmart. His schizophrenia is controlled, and he's a good tenant in his apartment community. I'm here tonight to advocate for permanent supportive housing. There is a tremendous need for that intervention in our community. And so what I would close with is there are many needs in our community: affordable housing, low income, permanent supportive housing. As you consider all of those needs in our community tonight, please remember those who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we just give one more round of applause to all of our speakers here tonight for coming out? Thank you for participating in this process. It's so important that we hear from you. And I'm very excited about the synergy in this room around areas we can focus on with this bond funding. So next we'll hear from the staff. We did a survey of all of the bond committee members to start to shape our priorities and get some feedback. So the staff will present those results to us now.
Good evening, co-chairs, committee members. Ian Benavides, City of San Antonio Neighborhood and Housing Services Executive Director. Really quickly, I'm just going to go over the topics that I'm going to discuss today. I'm going to do a quick recap of our charge and purpose as a committee, just to bring us all back. I'm going to do a quick recap of our November 17th meeting. I'm going to go over the survey results, which would really be the bulk of my presentation. And then after that, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. And then I think we'll wait for the bus tour next meeting slides after that discussion. So the committee charge, what is this committee charged to do? As we discussed in our first meeting, the committee's charge is to prioritize the categories and populations that are to be funded through the housing bond. They are to listen to public feedback and comments, as we've done over the past 2 meetings. And then ultimately, they are to make a recommendation. And that recommendation will be used to create a council resolution that will be adopted by City Council. After the survey results, I'll give you an example of what that may look like. And I think it'll be a good starting point for conversations in the committee going forward. At our November 17th meeting, we discussed two presentations. We had one on the equity matrix that was created by the Department of Equity, and our homeless strategic plan that was presented by Department of Human Services. We listened to public comment, and then after the meeting, city staff sent out a survey to the members of the housing committee to help frame their discussions on use for the proposed bond. These aggregate responses are what I'm going to present today for discussion purposes moving forward. So the survey results that you are going to see, here's just some quick high-level points of the survey. So we had 31 of the 32 members participate. Again, the purpose of the survey is really to gauge where the committee is on various topics that have been discussed. I think we've had a lot of really good conversations with several members of the committee, kind of switching topics back and forth. And what this survey was really an opportunity to do was to take each individual topic and discussion point and kind of hear where each of the committee members is on it. And this really is going to be used to inform your discussion going forward into our final meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in to, maybe I won't. Okay, there we go. Too many. So the first question that was asked of the committee members is which affordable housing programs do you want to prioritize? This was a rank order question. What we were able to do is to take everybody's top 3 choices, knowing that there's probably, not an easy selection to be able to choose one over the other. Some people had a lot of priorities within here. So we took the top 3 and we aggregated those responses, and that's what's being shown to you today. So of those top 5 of your all top 3 choices, home ownership, rehabilitation, and preservation was number 1 with 37%. Rental rehabilitation and preservation was number 2 with 31%. Rental housing new construction was number 3 at 13%, and it was tied with permanent supportive housing at 13%. And lastly, homeownership new construction came in 5th. The second question is which income levels do you want to prioritize for housing rehabilitation and preservation? The top 5 choices based on your 3 selections, top 3 selections were home ownership for less than 30% of the area median income, rental housing for less than 30% of the area median income, rental housing at 30 to 60% of the area median income, home ownership at 30 to 50% of the area median income, and home ownership at 80 to 120% of the area median income. The third question is which income levels do you want to prioritize for new construction? So same question, but different program. Rental housing for less than 30%, AMI was by far and away the greatest choice from the committee. Second was individuals with no income or people experiencing homelessness. Next was rental housing for individuals making between 30 and 60% of the area median income. Home ownership for individuals making less than 60% of the area median income, and then home ownership for individuals making between 100 and 120% of the area median income. The fourth question was for rental housing supported by the bond, which vulnerable populations would you like to prioritize? I think we've heard a lot today and over the past couple meetings of different vulnerable populations that may need specific types of housing. We know that some individuals may fit in many of these buckets, but we also know that if you're building housing specifically to target some of these individuals or these households, that things like location, design criteria, or even funding sources matter. So this exercise was very helpful. We had a lot of selections and we asked you all to pick your top 5. The top 5 that you all selected as a committee were people experiencing homelessness, older adults, individuals with disabilities, families, and survivors of domestic violence. For home ownership, housing supported by the bond, which vulnerable populations do you want to prioritize? This had some of the same selections and we saw some of the same results, but kind of mixed the order. Number 1 was families. Number 2 was individuals with disabilities. Number 3 was older adults. Number 4 was multi-generational families. And number 5 were survivors of domestic violence. The sixth question that we asked is what additional criteria do you consider most important when you're funding projects? This was a rank order question. Number 1 was vulnerable populations being served that we just spoke about. Number 2 was location, which I'll go into in the next 2 questions. Number 3 was universal design and accessibility that we spoke about. And sustainable and resilient design was the 4th selection. Oops. So for location, we asked two location questions, again, ranking your top 5. What is the most critical factor for project location when you consider new construction of affordable housing? The top 5 for new construction of affordable housing was access to transit and public transportation. That was by far and away the greatest selection. Number 2 was locations in areas with high equity scores. High equity scores are areas with low incomes and high percent of people of color. Number 3 was locations within regional centers. Again, these are the regional centers that were established by our planning department and adopted by our city council in our long-range plan. Growth centers with amenities. And then 4 was located in areas with low equity scores. So that's the inverse of high equity scores. These are areas with higher incomes and lower percent populations of people of color. And then 5th was other. And inside your packet, you have some responses that included all the other feedback that was provided to staff, as well as any additional comments that were made to staff. So there was too many to put into a presentation, but you will have them there. For project location for the rehabilitation of affordable housing, again, some of the same criteria, but they were reversed order. For rehabilitation, the number 1 criteria was located in areas with high equity scores. Number 2 was located in older or historic neighborhoods. Number 3 was access to transit or public transportation. Number 4 was located in areas with low equity scores. And number 5 was located in areas within regional centers. So these were the 8 questions that staff was able to provide to the committee to get your feedback on some of these important topics that we've discussed. We believe this is an excellent opportunity to kind of gauge where the committee is on some of these issues and really launch the conversation going forward. As we spoke at the beginning of my presentation, one of the charges and the final document that this committee will produce is a resolution that will be adopted by council. So one of the ways in which we can use a survey like this and some of the comments we've heard is to identify some of those priorities that we can pull from these. So what this would mean is something like this. For example, 1 would be homeownership, rehabilitation, and preservation for households making less than 30% of the area median income in historic neighborhoods or areas with high equity scores, with specific focus on families, individuals with disabilities, seniors, multi-generational families, and survivors of domestic violence. This could also mean for rental housing, rehabilitation, and preservation for households making less than 30% of the area median income in historic neighborhoods or areas with high equity scores, with specific focus on seniors, families, individuals, disabilities, and survivors of domestic violence. This could mean permanent supportive housing and rental housing new construction for households making less than 30% of the area median income in areas with strong access to transit and public transportation, in areas with high equity scores, with specific focus on homeless, seniors, families, individuals with disabilities, and survivors of domestic violence. This would mean homeownership and new construction for households making up to 60% of the area median income, with areas with strong access to transit and public transportation, in areas with high equity scores with a specific focus on families, individuals with disabilities, seniors, multi-generational families, and survivors of domestic violence. And this could also mean that all projects that receive bond funding must show a commitment to universal design criteria and sustainability when possible or appropriate. So this is a way that we've used some of the comments that we've heard from your discussions, from public comment, and from your survey to draft some points that could be turned into a resolution that could be adopted by council. So with that presentation, I do have some discussion questions that I think the co-chairs would like to open up. And Lori, did you want to? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Shirley and Katie for discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. And was that it? Was there a presentation from our city attorney's office or anything like that?
No,
Or
ma'am.
Was that it? Okay. All right. Thank you all very much for being here. So I hope that you all have found this process valuable, and we are just going to go around the room. I'm going to go district by district. We're going to give each council district 3 minutes to make any comments based on these questions. If you would like additional clarification on the survey results and any additional comments that you may have. And I'll just start here. We haven't heard from you, Calvin, in District 10. And so you are the sole representative today of District 10. And if you have up to 3 minutes, and you can always pass it along to your colleagues here in District 9, and we'll just go around the horn this way and hear some comments and feedback from the committee members.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for everybody that spoke. I'm happy to be on this committee as the sole representative tonight. But my thought in this whole process is that we haven't got a real clear direction. I think they're trying to do that with the survey and give us a direction on where we're going. And my thought is I really think we need to determine how we want to spend this money. I like the bucket analogy. We spent a lot of times talking about 30% AMI, but I think in an opportunity like this where it's a citywide bond that's supposed to help a lot of different people, I think we can't just focus on one particular group. I think we need to diversify that. So that's my thoughts.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll move on to District 9. If you all want to present as a group or individually, you have 3 minutes.
I would say individually, definitely. So one thing I did want to say is that the survey was kind of really not fair to a lot of the different communities out there. It's like nobody on this panel is going to say domestic violence survivors are the lowest priority of the totem pole. You know, nobody's going to suggest that. On this survey, there's a mixture of how many veterans are disabled veterans. I'm a disabled veteran, so there's cross categories. So the survey was difficult to answer, and I think there was a lot of unfair points of it, but not to take away against anything of the city staff work. They're great. They're doing the very best that they can and everything, but I just want to make sure that when we're looking at these survey answers, we're working in the confines that was given to us to answer. I did want to make a point in regarding that someone pointed out that the 100% AMI they serve doesn't make $80,000, but which they are correct if the households that they're trying to serve is two-person households. But anything beyond that, if you look at what the city provided us, if you're a household of 3 or more, you're making at 120% AMI, that's $80,000. Those are facts, just pointing that out. But generally, when you build for households, you're trying to go for 3 bedrooms or more. And so I do understand that there is a cost burden. So I'm not saying that homes that are in the 100 to 120% AMI do not need to be produced, but $150 million is not a lot of money. There needs to be the needs at like 30% AMI is way higher. Just looking at Saha, they need over $300 million, just that. So $150 million is not going to go as far. I'm a real estate agent. I know that owning a home does what owning a home does for people. I'm also a part of a nonprofit that aims to one day start building for low-income homeowners, but not at 30% AMI. So I'm not here to advocate for my nonprofit to go get any of this money. Yes, there are homes buyers that are out there at 120% AMI that are having a hard time bidding on the limited homes that are out there that they can afford to purchase. But there's so many more seniors, disabled persons, and families that are on fixed incomes that do not have the ability to go and try to bid on any of these houses or anything like that. So
Rich,
we
I'm
definitely
gonna,
need to keep
interrupt you so we can move along, and that was all the time for District 9.
Oh,
Perhaps,
Jesus.
so it was 3 minutes per district.
Oh, all
And
right.
so, I feel like we need to move it along, and we can come back to the districts if there's more time. The idea being that we don't have a perfect system. This is, again, a process that this is the first time we've done a housing bond, and what's, again, unique about it is that we don't have specific projects. So we are trying to get some consensus. so
Yeah,
can
we
move
weren't told this
along.
before the meeting that we
I
were
think
going to
it's
have
been
to
mentioned
figure that
a
out.
number of times that we are trying to
No, it
just
wasn't.
prioritize either populations or locations. It's
Well, I
been
was trying to
mentioned-
get to the funding aspects that.
Let me move
why
us
money
along to
need to be
District
there.
8, and if we have an opportunity, we can come back. So If there's someone from District 8 that would like to discuss.
You want to say, you want to say, is she okay saying so? Well, I have a question that would help me. My background is not housing, and that was one reason I volunteered for this. It's always been in a whole arena of other activities.
Okay,
in
hopefully the
city.
staff can address your question.
I'm sorry.
Oh, hopefully the staff can address
Oh.
your question.
Well, I would like to know what the timeline is. I know the bond issue will be coming up at the beginning of the year. I personally feel we're on a very crunched timeline. To my knowledge, the ship has not, ship has sailed, right? But it is not past council, so that has to be done. I know that council has tremendous amounts of material to read. I think it's going to be difficult for them to be briefed and really understand all of this. There's so much more to this than I even knew. And listening to everyone who is involved in it. So I would like a timeline to begin with. Secondly, oh gosh, we're out of time. I forgot. No, that's okay. That's good enough. Timeline.
So yes, ma'am, on December 16th, we will be taking the Strategic Housing Implementation Plan to council for consideration. This will be after our last public meeting that's being held this Saturday. And we do have one going in Spanish as well on Saturday afternoon. The SHIP identifies the different types of programs and the metrics necessary to meet those program needs. And then it's been used to help inform the types of priorities that we want to fund using the bond program. Now, the SHIP will hopefully get adopted on December 16th, but the bond program will not be considered by council until January or February. I do want to stress that the charge of this committee is to identify the priorities for funding, and based on the survey that the committee completed, these are really the priorities. And what we heard was that there is a priority for 30% AMI or below, a priority for owner-occupied rehab in established neighborhoods and in areas with high equity scores, and a priority for rental rehab in established neighborhoods and areas of high equity scores. And then the third priority is permanent supportive housing and new construction. And so what we're thinking is, what we're asking is the committee would need to adopt something similar to this in priority order, and that would help us identify how that 150 is going to be used. And that would be adopted by council when they call the vote in January.
This meeting, what you just said. My question was, when it goes to council, because I observe council, and many times they really do not have the information or the background they need.
So the SHIP, the SHIP has gone to council already. It's gone to it has not been approved, but it's gone to a council committee numerous times. It has gone to council for a briefing, and then it's gone to the public. And it'll be brought back to council for consideration on December 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ian, could you bring up the questions that we hope that they will, the committee members will address? There were two questions that we were trying to focus on as we move the meeting along. And can we then hear from Districts 7?
Thank you to city staff for your presentation. This information is helpful. Sorry, my voice is shaky. More importantly, thank you to all those who took the time out of their evening to speak at tonight's final Citizens to be Heard session. You being here tonight is a reflection of the need for these dollars to be wisely allocated into areas that best support you. With that said, I want us to be mindful of the fixed time we have to discuss how these bond dollars are used. It is not enough to just list out our priorities and write a blank check with the hope that the appropriate funds are allocated accordingly. We have been asked to join this committee to discuss and identify how we'd like to see these funds utilized. So, with that in mind, I'd like to make the following motion. I motion that the staff provide funding recommendations for the committee to discuss at the final bond meeting for the following priorities: single-family home repair, public housing, permanent supportive housing, community land trust to be utilized for single-family home repair and production, and multifamily home repair and production. Does anyone second?
So we were not going to accept any motions from the floor. I thought that's what the city attorney was going to address. We're still trying to get feedback on the survey results, trying to stay focused on these two items. On the last meeting, we'll eventually take a vote on if we're supportive of the items the way that they've been presented, but we're still going through and getting feedback from everyone, and we're not prepared to accept any motions from the floor.
I would like to add that your feedback is really important. Like it was really good, because what I heard you say is that those 5 categories that we put up there, you support, but what you're asking is for us to come back with that 150 and break out how we would put it.
Exactly.
And so that, I don't think we need a motion. We just need to hear that so we can know that when we come back, and we can share that with the tri-chairs on how we structure the next meeting. So I really appreciate what you just said, because what I heard from you is those categories. Can you go back to that slide? That yes, you agree that 30% AMI and owner occupied rehab are really important, but what's missing is how much of the 150 should go to that. And so thank you for that. I really do appreciate it, because that was really, really helpful.
Thank you. Let's move along to District 6.
Hello. I also appreciate all of the speakers this evening. It was very helpful to hear all the needs. There's obviously a lot of different needs, a lot of diverse needs in our community. Preservation, I think we've seen is key, right, for single family and multifamily. I think that will help prevent displacement and demolition. And so I like to see that priority on there. Again, making it for less than 30% could prevent somebody that is disabled or is a senior that makes 40 or 50% and not be able to qualify for a program. So I think prioritizing populations over specific just 30%, I think that kind of makes it so that those funds are restricted even more. And so I like the things that are listed on here. But a lot of those individuals that with disabilities or that have seniors or the working poor, they already qualify for the 30%, but those that are at 31% may not be able to qualify for these funds and then become displaced or homeless. And so I'd like to continue for us to consider that to be more diverse. Also supporting development that allows residents to be self-sufficient, like some of the presenters that we heard from today. There is a gap there that we need to fill. I did have 2 questions on how the city selects the current homeownership or homeowner repair programs. If the city has certain priorities that when they select like the actual people that qualify, do they have to be within any of these categories already, was one of my questions. And then my second question was if the bond money could actually be used for public housing, like for repairs in the home, or if it was used for public housing, if it's just for infrastructure, or how that, if there's restrictions on how that bond money can be used. I know there's a large need that public housing has, but this $150 million to wrap it up all for public housing would mean that we don't have the funds to use for owner-occupied repair programs, preservation, a lot of the things that we've heard that the community needs. So I don't want to wrap it up in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. Our current owner-occupied rehab program has guidelines. It's below 80% AMI, and it's basically you must be below 80% AMI, and there must be a need, and then we go through and vet the applications. If we were to look at this 150, and let's say we say we're going to put $50 million towards owner-occupied rehab, we would do a different solicitation for the bond money, but we would say we're going to prioritize individuals making less than 30% of the area median income. And to be honest, the majority of people who apply or get that money are making less than 30% of the area median income. That is where the need is. It's homes that have been in their families for years, and they need help to repair those homes. So there is more than enough need for that category. So we would issue a specific solicitation just for the bond funds, owner occupied rehab for families, or for households making less than 30% AMI. And we could target areas in established and historic neighborhoods and with high equity scores. I hear your comment, Rich, on the vulnerable the populations. I agree with Ian. It was really helpful to see, what the populations were prioritized, but we could make that very general too and just say the vulnerable populations in our community and not even have to put specific populations. I wanted to mention that. I didn't get to mention that earlier.
Lori, I'm going to move us along so we can hear from
And then my
everyone.
second-
And then on the Saha
question,
one,
yeah.
you can use the money for infrastructure. You can use it for repairs. But once again, we'd go through a solicitation. And let's say it's for rehab or new construction. We would hope that Saha would apply through that solicitation and we could go through the process and then make a recommendation to City Council, because ultimately City Council is going to be approving these projects.
Thank you for that. District 5 will come back up this way.
I'm not going to try to take too much of this so Amy can talk as well. But first, I would just like to say that, a lot of the answers on this survey were forced. Like, we didn't have a choice. We had to choose these answers and we had to choose an order. So I don't necessarily agree with the results of this. But having said that, the first 3 priorities, they're almost right. But one thing that needs to be done before the next meeting is every single committee member here needs to learn the difference between public housing and 30% AMI. There is a huge difference. Public housing actually serves 0 to 80% AMI. It's not 30% and below only. So please, please learn your stuff before we even discuss this.
Yeah, specifically on page 7, the summary number 3, there's no support in the survey for the conclusion that we want new construction for homes up to 60, or for households up to 60% of AMI. Also, the survey did not provide any opportunity for us to express our interest in having a substantial part of the bond money go to public housing. There was nowhere to do that. So I'm sorry that the survey was limited in that way. But again, there's no support in the results for 4 and 5.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to District 4.
Peter Onofre, District 4. I wanted to reaffirm my position that I support prioritizing the 30% AMI, but do not support limiting all the bond funding to that AMI category. The demand for 30 AMI housing is great, and Saha does noble work, and the waiting list is overwhelming. But if we're serious about addressing this need, we need to address that waiting list. And I believe we need to rethink how we provide this type of housing. This segment of our community should not be marginalized, but integrated with supportive services that maximize their ability to move up the AMI ladder. This is why I support including the 40 to 50 AMI funding. I do not support directly using bond funding in support of the current government public housing model, but offer that we look to concentrate on developing a different innovative model utilizing nonprofit, faith-based, and for-profit partnerships to address this need of 30 AMI. We need a balanced approach that the SHIP provides.
H. Drew Galloway. Thank you to the citizens for speaking tonight. My first question is, this is the only time we get to speak tonight, is that correct?
That's correct. We'll have we have one more meeting and then we have the tour on Saturday.
I spent hours reading materials for this meeting tonight, and I get like literally 30 seconds. That would have been really great to know prior to showing up tonight so I could really, synopsize everything. With my remaining 20 seconds that I have left, I support under 30% AMI prioritization with RFP prioritization of universal design, free and reduced cost internet, and proximity, especially to public transportation. I am supportive of the permanent supportive housing as long as it has a housing first model, and I think that this should be written in, with adjoining services. And I disagree with number 4. Thank you.
Thank you. District 3?
Yeah, it's just a question. I guess I have one question, but before that, I love how everything was framed for us to decide on everything. But what exactly are we going to discuss and vote on or approve at our final meeting?
Laura, you want to answer how?
Just so we can be prepared.
Yes, of course.
So what we would approve would be something similar to this. And so we're looking for comments on how to edit it and any changes. And so I've heard a few about, not being specifically or targeting populations, maybe just adding something like vulnerable populations. I've heard comments about maybe not doing 30%, going up to 50%. And so we need that information because we need a document like this that we can use when we start doling out the bond funding. And then what I heard from District 7 was you'd like us to assign numbers to each of these priorities. And so we'll discuss that with the bond chairs as well to see if we want to spend, for example, $50 million on homeownership rehab and preservation for homeowners making less than 30% of the area median income. Is that a priority? So that's something we'd come back at the next meeting, and hopefully we could get that to you in advance so you can look at your notes and look at the public comment so we can be prepared to vote on that.
I have a follow-up question. Earlier when District 7 asked, you said that for us to agree on, what happens if we don't agree on it?
Well, that was part of the purpose of the survey. And so if the survey results do show that about 60% support. Ian, if you can go and bring it up. So, I mean, the idea is to get consensus, since again, we're not supporting individual projects, but consensus on areas that we want to focus on and populations that we want to focus on. So, we are again voting generally on a resolution that will go to the council. I mean, that's what makes this one very unique, is that we're not supporting individual projects. Eventually, different entities will submit RFPs asking for funding of particular projects. But that's the idea, that was, again, the purpose of the survey. We're not going to get 100% support for any one thing, but just a variety. So before we go back, let me get through the other districts, and then if we have time, we'll open up the floor. But the District 3 Council or representative has the floor if you have any other additional questions.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a statement. I think that we need to consider land bank and community trust to develop regional areas to build affordable housing to help develop access to transit and public transportation and help address current food deserts such as those in District 3.
And so, Lori, couldn't all of those tools be used to
Yes.
address the...
And so all of those tools can be used to help meet all of these priorities.
Let me go through the districts. No, not right at this moment. We're going to go through, and then I'll turn the floor over. So if we could hear from District 2. I'm sorry, go ahead, District 3. Did you have any, were you prepared to yield the floor? Okay, thank you. District 2.
Hi, good evening. So one, I think that I just want to address that, or just ask the question. It should be quite obvious, but we are running by Robert's Rules of Order, correct? Throughout the entire meeting? Okay. Okay, so to that point, a lot of my concerns about this survey have already been addressed. I didn't feel comfortable with the fact that some of these top fives were because we were forced to have to put them in an order. There were not some areas that we could not leave out. One of the points that I wanted to make was like home ownership at 100 to 120%. That says top 5, but really it was just because we had no other option but to put at the very bottom. So this is not, just for the public to understand that it is not necessarily our top 5, but that's kind of, our hand was forced to push that way. Also, it was uncomfortable for me to have to choose between demographics of who deserves funding or who deserves support over another. To say to the point that Rich, you made earlier about, saying somebody who has a victim of domestic violence is more deserving than a veteran, and we have to rank these, that begins to feel like playing like God. And so for me, this bond, much like the city budget, is a moral document, and we need to be looking at it as such. Additionally, I just a comment on how this committee is run, because we've already said this several times. It is very unique, but it is a bond committee funding. We're looking at funding of $150 million, yet this committee is not addressing how that funding is going to be put. So I would like to have that in discussion. Veronica, thank you for bringing it up for city staff to bring that up, or to see where allocation can go. I also would like to agree that I disagree with what does it mean, number 4 of homeownership new construction for households making up to 60%. I have not seen that in the public comments, nor did I really see that in the survey, unless we just completely overlooked the what was it, permanent supportive housing piece of it, that it was ranked. Yeah, no income people experiencing homelessness was ranked number 2, and then rental housing at 30 to 60% for that one. Unless I'm reading this wrong, which I possibly could be, since I'm not a subject matter expert. So I just want to kind of understand where that came from as well. But overall, I do appreciate that the survey came out. I think it is a good direction for us to have these conversations, constructive conversations, and I look forward to the conversations moving forward. Additionally, because I think there are a lot of good conversations coming up, and we have very finite time on how we can have these discussions, especially since we're given 3 minutes per district. When there's multiple of us here, and I think we all have a lot of input. I'd like to make a motion to extend time today to at least another 30 minutes for to have it for 8:30.
So if there's a desire to continue the conversation, we can, but if people then are ready
There's a
to
motion on
go,
the
they
floor.
can. We're not accepting any motions from the floor.
Robert's
So-
Rules of Order says
no,
that you
we don't
can.
have.
I second.
Thank you.
We can continue to have the
Sounds
discussion.
like the chairs have the ability to.
If we can, chairs, we did notify the committee that Robert's rules are here to facilitate the chairs running the meeting in an efficient and effective manner, recognizing we have a limited amount of time. And as the chair said, she's extending the time of the meeting. So that's, again, I wanted to clarify that. The rules are there to help the co-chairs run the meeting.
So let's hear from district number 1, and then if people want to go back and make comments, we can do that. And then if anybody needs to leave, that, they can leave. So if we could turn it over to district 1.
I think each of us are going to speak individually, and there's been so much good, constructive comment that I feel like there's not much to add at this point. I do want to echo what Rich said. $150 million is not a lot of money. The city has spent $150 million on emergency rental assistance and utility assistance in the past 18 months, and we haven't seen a substantial change in demand or need in the community for housing. So $150 million, as exciting as it is to think about that, if we talk about $75 million per year for owner-occupied rehab, that's 125 homeowners. That's not the tens of thousands of units that we're all imagining this bond is going to address. So I do want to request that we tie rehab funds to code violations, and that we tie the funding for multifamily violations to folks who have failed HQS inspections, so that we can expand the pool of units available to SAHA voucher holders. And I do want to remind folks that all PSH units, and Drew, by definition, PSH is barrier-free housing. It's actually the definition that HUD uses. So anything that would be PSH would be barrier-free. That those units will all benefit people at less than 30% AMI, some of whom have zero income. So I'll turn it over to other members.
One additional, I guess, point that would cover all of these is we'd like to for the committee to consider limiting the use of these funds just to the nonprofit sector providers. And I know that one of the conversations may be that we simply don't have the capacity in order to do that, but we need to build the capacity in the nonprofit sector in order to provide and rehab the housing that we've got, to provide new housing, and to provide the supportive services that are available within a lot of these complexes.
I just have one quick comment. I don't agree with number 3, not necessarily in the subject matter, but actually the way it's broken out. And I really think, and I've been telling people this for a while, that we need to bifurcate within new rental unit production, permanent supportive housing, and new rental housing for working families between 30% to 50% of AMI. Both the Mayor's Housing Policy Task Force report talks about the percentage of the workforce in San Antonio that earns an hourly wage that is at 50% of AMI or below. The only way that we're going to be able to get units that are affordable to families earning from 30, 40, 50% AMI is to be able to access capital from a source like the bond. And so it's not the way it's written, it's that we really need to separate those two areas of need into different silos.
Okay, thank you. We need to hear from the staff about our tours and our next steps. And then if anybody wants to stay and continue the discussion, we can do that. But before we release everyone, let's at least hear about the next steps.
Thank you, co-chairs, committee members. The tour is scheduled for December 4th, Saturday. It's going to start at 9, but we're asking everybody to arrive at 8:30. We'll be taking off from Development Services One Stop, so that's at 1901 South Alamo. They've got a parking lot, and we're able to pull the bus in there pretty easily and provide parking for everybody. The tour will be from 9 to 2. It is closed to the public, so it's only for committee members. And our tour stops, as drafted, are here below, and I'd love to hear your comments on it. Our first stop would be at one of our 2017 bond projects, which is the Park at 38. The second stop would be the Charles Andrew Apartments by the San Antonio Housing Authority. They own and maintain it. The Terraces at Haven for Hope. We're going to go look at a city owner-occupied rehabilitation program home. We're going to look at Habitat Humanity's model home that they have. And then we're going to take a lunch break. And then our final stop would be across Timber Home before coming back to 1901 South Alamo. So that's an overview of the tour, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, anybody have questions for Ian? And then what about the final meeting? Isn't there a final meeting?
Yes, and our final meeting will be December 8th from 6 to 8, and it'll be here.
Okay, if anybody has any follow-up questions for Ian, so that concludes our formal meeting. If there's a desire to continue the discussion, we can. I think that Amy is very anxious to speak. So I'll
If you could please use the mic. I think you've been recognized by the chair. The folks
go
at home
ahead
can't hear you.
and so you can ask questions, and if they could be specifically to the surveys or how you might like to see the bond fund allocation.
I really don't enjoy being obnoxious. I'm not trying to be. But there is frustration. And Lori, the reason I wanted to ask you a question is because the frustration is the lack of understanding of how very significant the difference between public housing and 30% AMI tax credit or any other kind of funding. So when you said that we didn't have to talk about public housing, and I assume that's why it wasn't included in the survey, you said that's going to come later. We'll put out a PFR for RFP for affordable housing, and SAHA can apply just like everybody else. And the point is that RFP should say, we want proposals for developers who will provide housing that will be adjusted according to the income of each family. not what you said in your explanation, that it would be 30% or below AMI. And that's such a huge difference. And you're leaving out such a huge part of the population by failing to make that distinction, both in the survey, in your answers, and in what we're allowed to discuss here.
I am not making these decisions. This is the information that's coming from this survey and what we've heard from this committee. Can I finish? We let you
Yes.
speak, let me speak.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
What we heard from this committee and from the public is that we want to prioritize households or families making less than 30% of the area median income. Is that incorrect? Did we not hear? That's what we heard. Now, public housing, I agree, Kayla, it can go up to 80% what they provide. But what was selected and what was prioritized and what we've heard from the community is 30% AMI or below. Now, you're talking about adjusting it per income. We do that. Yes, we could look at that. I need that feedback. So why not say, would we adjust it for income and make sure that that is how it's addressed in the RFP? Now, SAHA can apply for an RFP that would help address those making 30% AMI or below. And so we're talking about different things. So what you're saying is you want to make sure that the AMI is adjusted for income.
No, well, in particular, I want to make sure that it addresses the needs of people, many of whom live in District 5, that make, for example, between 0 and 10% AMI.
And that's 30% AMI or below, yes.
Yeah, but it's specifically 30% AMI set rent, which is provided in tax credit units, is not affordable. It is a rental burden on families that make the minimum income, which is $15,000.
So what is your feedback for me?
My feedback for you is we were told at the beginning of this conversation that that the bond money could go directly to our public housing agencies, but nowhere in the questions that you asked us were we able to express our support for that idea.
Kayla,
And it feels like we're being kept from saying that.
Kayla, I hear your point. How would you recommend editing what's written here to get it closer to a final state for the vote at the next meeting? I think there's a way to make that clear.
Exactly. That's what I
so
need to hear.
Okay, I'm Kayla. She's Amy.
Oh, sorry.
We said it specifically several times. If you go to the playbacks, we specifically said public housing several times. And that's why I say people need to know the difference between public housing and 0 to 30%. We want both. We want funding for both. Nobody is saying put all the money towards one specific thing. We're saying we need both in there. We need specifically public housing and we need 0 to 30% and below.
So would you recommend under number 2 that it more explicitly says less than 30% or public housing?
To include public housing and public housing?
My understanding, Katie, is that this is supposed to be a summary of the survey, and what we're saying is that
so the survey's just a starting point to get input, but now we're here. This committee is going to make the decision.
All right.
So we want to go around and get input on how you'd adjust this.
Amy, is public housing, if we put public housing in that, is the only person or organization that can apply? Is the only entity that can apply SAHA?
Wait, but Lori,
I'm trying to educate
the bond
everyone here,
money,
too.
we have a unique opportunity to do something different. So it doesn't have to be through an application. We could say, and the voters could say, that we want a chunk of this money to go directly to San Antonio's public housing agency. It doesn't have to go through an application for funding from the city if the voters vote to put a certain amount of the bond towards it.
So right now, we are not focusing on who's going to be getting this money in terms of the entity that's going to build the housing. We need to focus on the populations and that we're going to be serving. So I'm asking you, Amy, to tell me how to revise number 2, so we can get that out to the entire committee so they can hear it.
Let me move
Somewhere it
this
should
along. There are
say
some other people
increase-
that want to make comments. So Amy, let me move it along. There may be somebody over here. Dr. Drennan also asked to
Amy,
address
could you
the-
send that to us? That'd be very helpful.
Yeah,
address
just,
the committee.
Well, public, first I agree, but public housing is a program. And so I think what we're also talking about though is rent that is restricted or dependent on one's income. And I'm just wondering, in speaking with the District 5 representatives, if there's language around that, or if because public housing is that, but I think when, for example, Councilwoman Castillo said, could the city provide public housing? I think that her vision was for that a rent restriction that was pegged to somebody's income rather than to the area median income. So that when we, most of the public thinks about public housing, we do think immediately of the housing authority, which I advocate for as well. But I'm wondering if we use different language that said that this was rent that was dependent on a household income rather than the area median income.
So yeah, again, okay, go ahead, Celine.
Yes, thank you. We heard from a lot of nonprofits today that serve a lot of these residents that we're trying to help, that intentionally serve 30% households, that may be in a unit that's designated or doesn't have any type of designation, and still intentionally keeps those rents low so that 30% or 40% or 50% renters can live in them. So if we tie that money to one specific provider, then that money cannot be used for any other owner occupied. I know you're not saying to use all the money, but there's very limited money there already. And so to tie that up with one specific just public housing does limit it to just Saha or Bexar County, like you said. But then that limits all of these nonprofits that just spoke with us today that do provide housing to those 0 to 30% renters. And now they wouldn't even be able to qualify to get any type of gap funding. And then that limits affordable housing even more. I understand what your intention is, but I think it's going to have the reverse effect, because now you're limiting the number of affordable housing providers that are able to even apply for this money.
I have some questions about the legality of that. I don't know if, I mean, could you put even something in a bond that only included one entity? So I'm asking it generally the question.
There would be a chairperson, there are some state law requirements that require us to issue RFPs, so it could be problematic to designate it for one agency. But we'll have to look further at that, but there could be some issues there. You're correct.
It seems to me like in my limited experience that would not be legal, and therefore not something we could put before the voters. Is there anything else, any other comments that, go ahead here, please.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm District 2. I'm nervous and I'm cold. I'd like to start off by saying, being totally transparent, I'm the one committee member that did not submit the survey. If I can't trust the process, how are the people that showed up today to talk supposed to trust the process? I had a fear. I had a fear for submitting it that my words and opinions would get twisted in a way that I didn't mean them to. And this right here just proved it. I think we need to be transparent. At the next meeting, we need to put real dollar amounts like we talked about to these things so that people know that we're actually doing something real here and we're not just acting on our own agendas. And I think we need to stress upon that and stop having these weird just arguments about whether or not, the time is up or the rules and all that. I felt like we wasted at least 15 minutes of time, to which the chairs were not timed.
And so Stephanie, just given that you didn't respond, do you want to respond about how you might like to see, just given what's been presented today, what you might like to see different?
The main thing is number 4, we need to totally get rid of that. Full disclosure, I work at Meals on Wheels, which provides food, not houses. So not a conflict of interest. But I looked at our data today, and over 57% of our clients who are disabled, isolated, seniors, they make less than 30% AMI. You could buy all of them in air fryer and you'd run out of that money by next week. That's all I'd say.
Anyone else want to comment? Laura, we haven't heard from you today.
I'm Laura de Leon, and I belong in District 6. Let me give you a little bit of history of how we got here. On the last bond, only the developers could get money. So they submitted a change on the city charter. And this change authorized people that are seniors, disabled veterans, which I only heard that one time. And the reason that we're doing this is we want to help the seniors throughout the city that are disabled. Seniors that can, seniors that at one time they were flying high and now they're flying low. So those are the people that have been paying tax for a long time without getting any benefits. And now they've gotten into a situation where they need some help from the city. You take these gentlemen up here that were here on wheelchairs. They're not on these wheelchairs because it's an easy ride. It's because of their disabilities. The disabilities, and we have to provide for those people, not only the ones that live in public housing, but throughout the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead. Sir.
I find it interesting that that's what he spoke about because I'm one of those people. I have a statement here. I've had the fortune or misfortune, depending on your perspective, on being in a car accident over 20 years ago. While I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, it has allowed me to experience things that I would have not done otherwise. That includes starting my own nonprofit over 10 years ago, advocating in DC regularly, even giving a TED Talk, being United Way Volunteer of the Year, as well as being here today surrounded by you amazing people. Well, it's led to unnecessary but appreciated allocates. Most of my most recent one being by the Express News Light in the housing category. But why haven't you heard of me? It's because I represent a forgotten, often ignored demographic of minorities, which is the disabled community. And I've gone from multi-generational households to a nursing home for almost 5 years to the semi-accessible apartment I am now. So I don't just see the problem, I live it. Well, I'd love to have 100% universally designed units. The truth is builders and the public are not educated enough to accept this. Builders are worried that they look and feel clinical instead of aesthetically pleasing facilities that they can be. And the public is not sure exactly what that term means. So I think it's important that we educate both on that. So going from A to Z might be much. What my recommendation, because with HUD right now, is only 5% of those new units are required to be accessible. But if we, each year of this bond, if we maybe propose to increase it 5% every year of the bond, it'll get us closer to that demographic that the CDC reports of the 26% that identifies people with disabilities. And the movie Field of Dreams says you build it, they will come. Well, we're already here. So we just need to build it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Art?
So I'll try to pick up where Rich left off since he took our time. Yeah. Just kidding. So a couple of things. First, though, just I know as we're talking about all the great opinions that we have, I don't want to lose sight of the amazing opportunity this is. Just going back to comments made in previous committee meetings, since 2007, the city, through their bond programs, has invested over $2 billion in infrastructure, but this is the first time that we're actually being able to talk about investing outside of public right-of-way through the housing. So regardless of the various thoughts, it's still an amazing opportunity that we're excited to be part of. So given that, we don't think necessarily spreading it equally amongst everywhere is the best approach, right? So it's about leveraging the money that we do have, the 150 million at this time out of a $3 billion or so need. And so going back to how do we leverage it, thinking about it through the bond program, the other different initiatives through the street proposition or parks, facilities, et cetera, and seeing how all that layers together. And so what we've talked about internally within District 9 and then through the committee process is focusing on keeping people in their homes. As I think Cosima mentioned, the most affordable housing right now is existing housing. So looking to leverage that preservation programs, especially in the high equity areas where there's that need. Perhaps in the lower equity areas, that's where you could look at new construction. But again, going back to how it's invested in really trying to take advantage of this opportunity and looking at the other improvements as well, because this is only a very small amount of funding out of the total, $3 billion or so need. So don't want to lose sight of that as well. That's it for now.
Thank you. If nobody else has any comments or questions, we can wrap up the meeting. It's 8:20. So it looks like we've heard from everyone. So thank you all so much. We look forward to seeing you. Oh, Lori, did you have a comment?
I just want to add that at the next meeting, what we're going to do is take the information that we heard tonight. We're going to revise these. I've heard a lot of feedback. We're going to assign numbers, and that's how the motions will start at the next meeting. And so several of you, I hope that you send us comments on what you'd like to be considered. So we can make sure we look at the survey, the feedback we've got. We may make changes, we may not, but next meeting is when you'll be making motions to say, I motion to approve item 1 for, let's say, $50 million. However, we'd like to amend the language to say X. That's how the process will begin. But please get us your feedback. If you have additional feedback, work through Ian and myself. We're happy to take that. But that's how the meeting will begin at the next bond committee meeting. Now, I will see you all on the tour on Saturday as well. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Okay. Did you have a question, Drew?
I was just going to ask, do we get those recommendations ahead of time so that we can see them,
Yeah, we
can prepare the
could work on
motions?
getting a packet ahead of time. We have 1 week. So I really hope that everybody can get us their comments this week. So after the tour, because we'll be getting feedback on that tour, we can get something to you out maybe on Monday before that Wednesday so we can start looking at that, okay? Send them to Ian Benavides.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Y'all have a nice evening.
Thank you.